our real nature. You might think that's always your subject of discussion. But the angle I'm going to take today is a part of a new initiative. I'm going to be reflecting upon the Vedantic teachings of Swami Vivekananda in a series of lectures starting today. How I came upon this is, when I was reading the bylaws of our Vedanta society, the first thing it says is, the purpose of this institution is to study and teach Vedanta as taught by Vivekananda and the early Swamis. And these bylaws were formulated during the time of Swami Abhedananda, a few years after Vivekananda. You see, we do study Vedanta here, the classical texts. We are studying the Upanishads. Right now we are studying Mandukya Upanishad. We study the Bhagavad Gita. These are the canonical texts of Advaita Vedanta. We study the early masters, Shankara, Vidyaranya, the author of Panchadashi. We are studying texts like Aparoksha Anubhuti and Drigdrishya Vivek and so on. And we must, that is true. But Vivekananda is of special relevance to us. In this center, of course, because this was where Swami Vivekananda first started his work, his organizational work in the West, the first Vedanta society. This was where his classics, Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga also were in fact first published from this center. I was reflecting upon that and I was thinking, notice, why Vivekananda? When you're studying Vedanta, what's the speciality? Why should we focus on Vivekananda? Vivekananda restated in our modern context the ancient teachings of Vedanta. He gave new insights. It's not just he gave the old teachings again, what's this? The old wine in new bottle, not just that, but new insights into Vedanta. Vivekananda was very much acquainted with the developments of science in his time, philosophy. He was a man of the entire world, not just the Indian context. He was a unique synthesis of East and West. So from his perspective, studying Vedanta has unique relevance to us. He was the teacher, like his master Sri Ramakrishna, he was the teacher of harmony. Harmony between reason and religion. So important today. Harmony between the different religions of the world. Again, of great importance. In fact, last week was declared as the Harmony of Faiths Week by the United Nations, World Harmony of Faiths Week by the United Nations. So, harmony within Vedanta. Many people do not know about the wide range of views within Vedanta which are all conflicting with each other. Non-dualism, qualified non-dualism, dualism. There are at least 10 major schools of Vedanta. But harmony within them, harmony of the different approaches to spiritual life, knowledge and devotion and meditation and service, the four yogas, classical four yogas of Swami Vivekananda. So the teacher of harmony, that's another thing that we gain from studying Vivekananda. And more so, the first thing actually which comes to mind when you study Vivekananda is strength, is life-transforming power, an immediate boost to our day-to-day life. You feel surcharged with positivity. You feel surcharged with strength to live our lives. Life-transforming power. I'm fully convinced that the power which works through Vivekananda is the power of the Avatara, of Sri Ramakrishna transmitted through Vivekananda. So these, and there are many other reasons. I was sitting and reflecting, why Vivekananda? So some of these reasons which came to my mind were these, and there are other reasons too. What I will do is take up the teachings of Vivekananda texts, and I will reflect upon them. I'll summarize and talk about them and reflect upon them from our 21st century perspective. This subject which I have got today, our real nature, the it's based on a lecture given by Swami Vivekananda, which is included in the Jnana Yoga. It's called The Real Nature of Man. So our real nature also, sort of polishes over the gender problem there, the real nature of man. So our real nature, we're going to talk about that and reflect upon it. Swami Vivekananda starts with the problem of death. Cheerful note. But it is the central problem. I was reading a very interesting book recently. It's called A Brief History of Thought. And it's an introduction to Western thought. Western philosophy particularly, but Western thought. But why is it interesting? There are so many such introductions, and I've read so many other books also, which are introductory books to Western philosophy and more detailed books. But this was different. Why was it different? Well, first of all, it's written by a Frenchman. Luc Ferry, he is a French philosopher. He was at one time the education minister of France. And he's a noted philosopher. After starting to read the book, I looked him up on internet, but all the talks there are in French, so I couldn't follow. This is a translation. Being French, he is independent. Let's put it that way. There is not a single work of any English author quoted there. When you read an introduction to Western philosophy by any English author, British or Australian or American or Canadian, you will find in the recommended reading a list of books written by, say, Bertrand Russell and so on and so forth, all the great English philosophers. If you look at the recommended reading at the back of this book, not a single work by any English-speaking author. No, there are no philosophers of note in Britain or America or Australia. All the reading is French or German writers and finished. But that's not the point. He starts off, when we started learning philosophy, with what is philosophy? And he said the standard definition is critical thinking about issues of interest. He says that's nonsense. That is not philosophy. Critical thinking about something is essential for any subject. Why just philosophy? And he says what philosophy really is to grapple with the problem of death. How interesting, he says. Here is a person who's mastered the entire Western canon. And as I read the book, it's a beautiful thing, it's really worth reading. Idiosyncratic. I did not agree with quite a bit of what he said, and you will not agree with it if you read it, but still original and brilliant. He starts off, he says, three things have to be considered when you talk about philosophy or thought in general, human thought. One is theoria, the original Greek word from which theory has come. That was also an eye-opener for me, because theo means the ultimate realities. Orao in Greek, apparently, I didn't know that, it means I see. So I see the ultimate truth. And what struck me, I was thunderstruck, because the name for philosophy in India is darshana, to see the ultimate realities. And when we studied philosophy, when we were novices, we were taught by our professors for philosophy that, see, Western philosophy and Indian philosophy are different. Indian philosophy is realizing the ultimate truth, that is darshana, but Western philosophy is philosophia, love of wisdom, it's about thinking. No, it's the same thing. It took me 30 years to come to this, and thanks to this person who says the literal meaning of theory and the meaning of the Indian word darshana is exactly the same, literally the same. Theory of one. Number two, he says we must consider ethics. What is it that we have to do? Theory is your theory, is your speculation about the world, what the world is. What follows from that? Second is ethics. So what do we do about it? That question. What is good and what is bad? And the last one, he says, every system of thought must have something to say about what he calls salvation. How does it confront death? What is the solution given by that system of thought about death? The problem of death is fundamental. We may say, no, I don't think about it. A modern psychoanalyst would say, the more serious problem, suppression, repression. You're not thinking about it. When they say, I have no problem, a very serious problem, you're repressing. Carl Jung, who also has an interesting history with this center, because there's a beautiful dialogue between him and Swami Pavitrananda. If you Google Swami Pavitrananda, Carl Jung, a dialogue about spirituality and psychoanalysis. Carl Jung said, I have seen that most psychopathology, especially in middle-aged people, people after middle age, is because of the fear of death. We do not admit it, we do not see it, but it haunts us. Ernst Becker, the classic book, it won the Pulitzer Award, The Denial of Death. He says, we are haunted by the fear of death. And all our, he calls them immortality projects. He says, most of human culture is a response to this deep-seated fear of death. From having children, to art, to writing books, to founding institutions, to science,
pure consciousness,
to making endowments,
the truth your ego doesn't want to
religion.
Have you ever noticed something terrifying?
All of these are responses
your
to the
thoughts
fear
never
of
stop.
death.
Your emotions change every hour.
How can I exist, continue
your personality
to exist?
changes over
time. Of course, his
but something inside you stays the same.
Doomed to failure.
And that's where most people get completely lost. Listen
Swami
carefully.
Vivekananda points out,
you think you are your
everybody
thoughts.
dies.
You
Saints
think you are your
die
fears.
and sinners die.
You think you are your problems.
Kings die and
Wrong.
beggars die. The
voice
learned
inside
die
your head
and
is
the
not you.
ignorant die.
It's just
Everybody
noise.
dies.
Pure
So
consciousness is the part
fear
of you
of
that
death.
watches everything.
What happens?
Here's a simple
is
example.
This all that there is?
You're angry.
Or is there something
You
beyond
say,
death?
I am angry.
The Kathopanishad,
But wait.
the little boy
If you
who
can
goes to
notice
the
the
house
anger,
of death and asks
Then
this
who is
question.
noticing it?
What happens
observer
after
is
death?
not the
And he
anger.
asks death, the final
observer
authority.
is consciousness.
So that's how the Upanishad begins.
Read this carefully.
Every
Clouds
system of
move
thought
across the
has
sky.
to say something about
But the sky
problem
itself
of death. What
remains
is your
untouched.
response to it?
Your thoughts are the clouds. Pure consciousness is the sky.
Another
And
thing
this next point will hurt.
is a question of happiness.
Most people spend their
Even
entire
within
lives
this life,
trapped
even
inside
before
their
we are
thoughts.
dead,
They
we
obey
suffer.
every fear.
There is
chase
unhappiness.
every desire.
There is
They
dissatisfaction.
react to every insult.
We
Then they
want
wonder
so
why they
much,
feel weak,
and
desperate,
yet we
and
get
lost.
so little.
Here's the part
Our
nobody tells
senses
you.
are limited. We try to
suffering
enjoy.
often comes
We
from
want much more
identifying the
happiness.
thoughts that aren't
But
even
how
true.
much can we eat?
A random
How
thought
much can
appears.
you party? How
am not
much
good
can
enough.
one drink? How
You
many
believe it.
movies can you watch?
A fear appears. I might
Somerset
fail.
Maugham says,
You obey.
if you
And
single-mindedly
this is where
chase
your life
pleasure,
starts
very
falling
soon you
apart.
find nothing pleasing
Not
anymore.
because of reality. Because of
Somerset
identification.
Maugham. He wrote that
Shocking
book,
truth
The
number
Razor's
one.
Edge.
Most of your thoughts were never consciously chosen by you. They simply appear.
There is something called the
Shocking truth number two.
hedonist trap.
The mind you trust so much is
Modern
often the same
psychology is
mind that
talking
creates
about
your
it.
anxiety.
Notice how
Shocking
when
truth
you
number
buy
three.
something, it may
The person you
be
think
a
you are is
gadget,
largely
or
a
it
story
may
you've
be
been
a
repeating
house,
for
it may be a
years.
dress.
Most people
Whatever
aren't
you
ready
buy
for this
or
truth.
whatever you go into to enjoy
consciousness
something,
doesn't need
the
validation.
expectation of happiness
It
that
doesn't
we
need
have
likes.
and the actual experience,
It
the
doesn't
actual
need
experience we get actually much less
simply
happiness
observes.
than we expected.
Here's a
And this has
practical
been, it's
example.
not just anecdotal. They have
Someone
statistics,
insults you.
they have done psychological surveys on it.
Revenge.
Grade the amount of
emotions
happiness
want
you
the
expect
reaction.
from this new iPhone.
Consciousness notices
Then you go out and
what
buy
is
it.
becoming you.
Then a week later, how much grade it? How much happiness are you getting from that iPhone? Always less than what you expected.
Instead of obeying it.
And modern psychologists say this has to be so. This is the way nature has programmed us. Why? Why? This expectation of happiness is what makes us do things which nature wants us. To eat and to reproduce and to have families. Nature wants us to do that for the propagation of genes and so on. How will it make us do? By promising pleasure and happiness. But, there's a but included there. If nature actually gives us the amount of happiness which seems to be there, we'll be satisfied. We would want to do that again. So nature gives you some happiness and promises you better luck next time. Try it again. Try it again. And we keep trying it. Even after knowing this, I learned it from Robert Wright's book. He's written a book called Why Buddhism is True. So he's an atheist. He's a neo-Darwinian. He says, even after understanding all this, I couldn't resist it. That's when I began to look at spirituality, meditation, that it actually enables us to put our insights into practice. The insights I got from positive psychology, from evolutionary psychology, from Darwinism, those insights, the understanding, that same understanding now I can apply to my life because I'm meditating regularly. So anyway, the problem of happiness, we are unhappy. We are not satisfied. How can we find fulfillment? So these are the two great questions. At the back is the great question of death. All ends. So what is the meaning in all of this? And in this life also, when we are here, it's still not very satisfactory. Now there are two possible responses to this. One is the ever so fashionable response of modernism and postmodernism. During Swami Vivekananda's time, it had already started. He called it nihilism. Nothing can be known. There's no real answer to all of this. Religion is false anyway. Philosophy never gets anywhere. And science simply just reveals that we are material beings. We are going to perish within a few years. That's it. There's nothing more. So what can you do? There's no point to any of this. That seems to be the answer. And it's become more and more and more fashionable. Nietzsche, that was before Vivekananda. But after that, whether it's Freud or Marx, this author whom I was quoting, French philosopher, he calls them the masters of suspicion. That all the idols have feet of clay. You have to question and criticize everything and find that everything is horrible. That's one way. But that is no solution at all. Swami Vivekananda says it's easy to talk. I've never met a person who's really a nihilist. A real deep thinking nihilist will commit suicide. The myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus, the first sentence, the only serious question facing us is, why should I not kill myself right now? He says. And the other way is to have this quest of thought, of philosophy, of spirituality. What is the reality about ourselves? What is the reality about life? What is our real nature? Look at ourselves and question. The quest starts. And this quest is what we're going to talk about today. Because there is an answer. There is a solution to it. By the way, the philosopher I was talking about, Luke Ferry, at the end of the book, he considers the four great movements in Western thought. Starts with Greek thought and how it was overwhelmed and replaced by Christian thought, how that was overwhelmed and upturned by modernism, science and rationality and democracy and things like that. How that was again threatened by our postmodern thinking. So from Greek thought to Christian thought to modernism to postmodernism. And then he says at the end, if you ask me the solution to the question of death, which one will you prefer? And he goes through the answers given by all four. He says, I would definitely prefer Christianity, but except for one thing, I don't believe it. He said, I don't believe it. It's not true. That is the place where most educated, thinking persons are stuck. Religion seems to promise a solution, but how can we believe that if you are intelligent and educated and smart? And it seems difficult to believe. Richard Dawkins was asked once, atheist, militant atheist, you keep speaking about atheism, but only a tiny percentage of human beings are atheists. Most people believe in some religion or the other. He said, yes, but if you consider, 99% of humanity they believe in some religion or the other. But if you consider, say, scientists, In fact, he said there was a poll conducted of Nobel Prize winners. And among Nobel Prize winners living now, more than 90% are atheists. And so he says, yeah, I just leave it to you. What is the conclusion? The smarter you are, the less likely you are to believe in religion. The dumber you are, the more likely you are to believe in religion. You decide. The devastating answer. So that is where we are stuck. What is the answer? You see, the great answer provided by Vivekananda and Vedanta is that there is a solution, and a solution that is acceptable, perfectly acceptable to our most modern rational minds. It was not for nothing that Nikola Tesla used to come to this Vedanta society to listen to Vivekananda and then to Abhedananda. It was not for nothing. Not this building, it was not there at that time. We have it in the lists of people who attended the talks. It was not for nothing that William James was attracted at Harvard University. Some of the leading intellects at that time who found it difficult to believe in religion, they found that possibility of real, acceptable, rational spirituality here. So what is this quest? Starts with the body first. What are we? The question is, what am I? What is our real nature? Is it just this little body? And immediately we see this body is a mass of changes. It is born and it dies. And while it is existing, it is changing continuously. From babyhood to childhood to teenage to youth to middle age to old age and death. Is this our real nature? Then we are trapped. We are little bodies born to suffer and then perish in a vast and uncaring material